First off, I completely understand that it's probably a little too early to be making these predictions. I also understand that general predictions usually end up being incorrect, so I fully expect to be wrong with each of these choices. With that being said, I still think this is a fun activity, and since I'm eagerly anticipating the start of the season, I figured I might as well get the predictions game rolling, and let me know in the comments what are your predictions for the upcoming season. So without further ado, here are my best guesses. First off, the Defensive Player of the Year. Jaren Jackson Jr. is the defending winner, and he's certainly a good candidate to repeat. And no, I'm not worried about his chances of repeating just because he didn't contest a shot in a meaningless pickup game. It is worth mentioning that although he won it last season, he would not win it this season with the exact same performance, considering how he only played 63 regular season games and the new NBA rule requires a minimum of 65 games played. In fact, in 4 out of Jackson's first 5 seasons in the league, he played less than 65 games. So the young man is going to need to take care of his health if he's going to repeat. But for me personally, my prediction is Anthony Davis. Now trust me, I see the irony of picking Anthony Davis after talking about Jackson's issues with staying on the floor, as AD hasn't played at least 65 games since he was a Pelican in 2018. But here's the thing. I know very well how Davis often misses regular season games with minor injuries, as a precautionary measure. In many instances, I believe he could have played in those games. Now, with a 65-game minimum, I think AD will have more incentive to push through those minor injuries, especially when you consider how he's made it very clear numerous times in the past that he cares very much about winning his first DPOY. If you want to earn that kind of attention from the voters, then it certainly helps when your team is competitive, and I don't think the Lakers will have any problems with that. LeBron should continue to be an ageless vampire, Davis is in fantastic shape, Austin Reeves is progressing quite rapidly, and the core of this Lakers unit now has some necessary chemistry and experience. Assuming they stay relatively healthy, I think they'll be one of the better seeded teams in the Western Conference. And if that's the case, Davis is probably the player who's most likely to be rewarded for that. Next up is the Most Improved Player. No award feels more like a straight up guess than this one, as it's almost completely dependent on the work the players put in during the off-season, and most of that goes unobserved by basketball fans. But if I gotta throw up a Hail Mary guess, I'm going with the young star in Minnesota, Anthony Edwards. When you look at great NBA players when they were young, like Kobe Bryant, Jason Tatum, and Jimmy Butler, all of those guys took a massive leap forward in their 4th year in the league, and Edwards is heading into his 4th season. He's a quality scorer and an elite defender, and he's still in his early 20s. Last year, he was getting better as the season went along, and based on his international play this summer, he looks like he's getting even better. When we last saw him in the NBA, he averaged around 24 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists. If he can get that scoring up to around 28 to 29 points per game, then I certainly believe he'll be a top 3 candidate. Next up is the 6th man of the year. Honestly, I would have loved to have had Chris Paul as my choice, as I believe he's the perfect experienced floor general to run the Dubs' second unit. But since the Warriors want to run basically the smallest starting lineup since the 1950s, I have to pick someone else. I'm gonna go with Malcolm Brogdon. Now his situation is subject to change, since he's been in the middle of trade talks. But he was big for Boston last year as an offensive spark off the bench. And with Marcus Smart no longer in the rotation for Boston, even more is going to be required of Brogdon. Next is Rookie of the Year. Not a surprising choice in the slightest, but I'm going with Victor Wembanyama. I was kinda tempted to go with Chet Holmgren, but at the end of the day, I think Wemby is too much of a sure thing assuming he stays healthy. Being under head coach Greg Popovich is one of the best outcomes he could have had. And honestly, I could see a scenario where Victor is a bit underwhelming offensively, yet he still wins the award due to his tremendous rim protection. There is also the possibility that a cautious coach like Greg Popovich doesn't give him full veteran minutes. But assuming he's going to be on the court as much as I expect him to be, I think the award will be Wemby's to lose. Next up, MVP. The Most Valuable Player award typically isn't rewarded to simply the player with the best stats, the best record, or the best narrative, but to be honest, it's usually a combination of all three. I imagine Joel Embiid will have an extremely difficult task ahead of him if he wants to win his second straight. Thanks to the James Harden situation, the Philadelphia organization is a bit of a mess at the moment. And when you consider how many people already regret selecting Embiid as the MVP over Jokic last season, then I can imagine how it's going to be hard for him to gain favor with voters in a close race. I'm kind of going with a dart throw here, but I think the MVP voters are ready for a new face, and my candidate is Luka Doncic. I understand that him and Kyrie didn't close out last season on a good note at all, as they finished 6 games below 500 and missed the playoffs. But let's be honest, that was a team that was constantly making adjustments throughout, and didn't have the luxury of building team chemistry before the action started. With an entire offseason for Luka and Kyrie to gel together, and for the coaching staff to develop a vision for the season, I expect much better results this upcoming year. The fact that the Mavericks did so poorly last season kinda sets the bar low for Doncic, and already sets up the narrative of Luka leading his team to an incredible bounce-back season, which is the kind of narrative that gains bonus points with the voters. Now here's the thing. In order for Luka to win the MVP, he doesn't have to turn them around into a title contender, but they just gotta be a solid team in the playoff picture. Consider this. Between the 1983 and 2016 season, 34 players won the MVP, and only one of those players were on a team that wasn't a top 2 team in the conference. On the other hand, from 2017 to 2023, there have been 7 MVP winners, and 4 of those players were not a top 2 team in their conference. For one reason or another, the NBA is starting to ease up on the idea that you need to be a top-seeded team in order to win the MVP. So what that tells me is that if Luka can get his Mavericks to bounce back and secure any spot from a 3 seed to even a 7 seed, it will end up gaining a lot of people's votes as the most valuable player. On top of all of that, Luka just averaged 32, 8, and 8 in a season where he was considered out of shape. In the offseason, the Mavericks organization said that his fitness was going to be a point of focus. And now, he's looking cut as he's arriving to his mid-20s while being in the best shape of his career. Like I said, Luka is my bold prediction, but my safe second choice would be Nikola Jokic. You know he has all the confidence in the world, you know his team is going to be elite, and I don't think voter fatigue will be a factor considering how most of the basketball world feels like he was screwed out of winning his 3rd straight. Kinda like how referees unofficially do a makeup call just to make it right for their previous bad call, I wouldn't be surprised to see Jokic get some sympathy votes, based on how he didn't get the MVP the season before. Obviously, there's more awards to hand out, like Coach of the Year, Executive of the Year, Clutch Player, blah blah blah. Personally, I'm not interested in making this video twice as long for the awards that are way less exciting. I'll at least give quick answers without elaborating. I've got Frank Vogel winning Coach of the Year with the Suns, Brad Stevens for Executive of the Year with the Boston Celtics, Steph Curry for Clutch Player of the Year, and a Funky Diabetic for YouTuber of the Year. Go check out his channel, you won't regret it. So what do you guys think? Who are some of your choices to win the major NBA awards this upcoming season? I look forward to hearing your selections in the comments section below. Thanks for watching as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more basketball content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.